to another installment of the Classics Retold, the place where stories unfold. This week, we talk about wishes. If you could have any wish in the world, what would you wish for? And no, you can't wish for 1,000 wishes. I knew a king who wished to have everything he touched turn to gold. Shall I tell you the story? I can't hear you. This is the retelling of the golden touch of King Midas. Long, long ago, the old stories tell us that King Midas ruled the land of Greece. He had everything money could buy, yet he wasn't satisfied. He had a huge palace made of crystal and fine white marble. Yet, he wanted a bigger palace, and if it was made of diamonds and rare jewels, how great that would be! He had a splendid garden filled with many, many flowers, priceless sculptures, and a huge river running through it. Yet, he wanted a bigger garden, and if it had a bigger river the size of a forest, how great that would be! He had lots of servants, all loyal and eager to please. Yet, he wanted more. And if he had 20 servants by his side at all times, how great that would be! He always wanted more of everything. And because he was never satisfied with what he had, he was never happy. One day, the king was taking a stroll in the garden when he heard someone call out to him. It was Silenus, a good friend of the great god Dionysus. Silenus was also the king's old teacher. "What are you doing here, Silenus?" "Oh, I can't remember. I'm getting old and sometimes I just can't remember where I am." And for the first time that day, the king smiled. His teacher had always been muddle-headed. And instead of sending him away, he ordered his servants to prepare a lavish feast of freshest seafood and juiciest meats. After a hearty meal, he sent Silenus home on a comfortable carriage pulled by the fastest horses. The great god Dionysus heard of the king's kindness towards his old friend, and he was grateful. So grateful that he offered to grant him one wish. The king could wish for anything in the world. Oh, the possibilities. He could wish for a bigger palace, or a bigger garden, or 10,000 more servants. But no, that still wasn't enough. Then he knew exactly what he wanted. "I want everything I touch to turn to gold. This way I would always have more. When I want it, where I want it."
Are you sure? Be careful about what you wish for. You can't ever take it back.
"I'm sure!" And so the great god did as he promised and granted King Midas the golden touch. Now, the king was once again taking a stroll in the garden. He touched a perfect pink rose, and it turned to gold on his hand. He reached up and plucked an apple from a tree, and it turned to gold too. Then a bird flew and landed on his finger. Its soft feathers slowly turned to hard gold. Oh no, he didn't mean to do that. Oh well, he would just have to be more careful about touching living creatures. The king felt alive. Everything he touched, shells, leaves, pebbles, even the river waters turned to valuable, precious gold. Soon, he had so much gold that he was sure he was going to spend the whole of the next week just counting and weighing them. For once, the king was satisfied. And because he was satisfied, he was happy. His happiness was short-lived. As he sat at his table for dinner, he reached out for a strawberry. And of course, it turned to gold. All the food turned to gold when he touched it. So what was he going to eat? An idea popped into his head. He yelled for a servant who came rushing into the dining hall and curtsying before the king. I can't eat on my own anymore due to my magical powers. So you shall feed me. The servant nodded and brought the strawberry to the king's lips. But because she wasn't used to feeding anyone, she held the strawberry a little too high and far away for the king to reach it. Impatiently, the king grabbed onto her wrist and tried to bring it closer. The moment his hand touched her wrist, however, she became rigid. She screamed and tried to struggle away, but her legs were already rooted to the floor and turning into hard gold. Her feet, calves, upper thighs and stomach, chest, arms, neck. She started to cry, and as magic slowly took over her entire body, she became a statue of hard gold. It would have been beautiful if not for the obvious fear forever etched on her face. The king was horrified. He didn't mean to do that. He didn't want to hurt anyone, let alone turn them into a statue forever. He begged the great god to reverse his wish. Please, great god, I don't want it anymore.
I told you before that you couldn't ever take it back. Yet, your greed made the decision for you.
The king knew he couldn't live this way. He wouldn't be able to eat or make contact with anyone. He wouldn't even be able to shower because touching himself meant turning himself into a gold statue too. Please, great god, help me. From now on, I'll focus on what I already have and be grateful for them. I'm sorry I've been so greedy.
I can't take away your golden touch. Your decisions have consequences, and you have to face them. But I can tie your hands together with a steel rope. No one can undo it. This would mean that you no longer have the use of your hands for anything.
The king's greed cost him his hands, a bird, and a young servant's life. If only he had been contented with what he had. Learning his lesson now, though, isn't too late. His loyal servants helped him with his daily needs and activities, and he was grateful. He became a great king, one who cared and was generous to his people. Seeing that he had learned his lesson, the great god decided to grant him one last wish. He could have wished for the use of his hands back, though that would have made his life so much easier. Instead, he wished to reverse everything he had turned to gold back to its normal form. And because he was satisfied, he was happy. Before we go, I have a challenge for you. List 10 things you're grateful for today. Let me give you an example. Today, I'm so grateful to have all of you listen to my story. Remember to share your responses with us by commenting on this video. Now it's time to close the show. Join us again for another classic